So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our ninth webinar of the TAM R&D webinar series. And the topic for today's webinar is VMware Horizon Enabling Work from Home Solutions. So because of COVID-19 and the current lockdown that we are facing here in India, most of us are working from home. And hence a lot of organizations are looking for a quick and easy solution to invoke BCP for the organizations. So today we have Amrinder Singh from Horizon Engineering, who will share the case studies of some big organizations in India where Horizon has enabled their employees to swiftly work from home. He is also joined by his colleagues who will be the panelists on the call today. I think Noble and Pawan are also presenting along with him. So just want to keep you informed that we are recording this webinar. So please get in touch with your respective TAMs to get the recording, and do share with your colleagues as well who are not able to make it in this call. We'll keep everyone on mute by default. So try and use the Q&A window. If you have any questions in between, put that in the Q&A window, and the panelists will be monitoring the Q&A and will try and answer your questions. We'll also try and have 10 minutes of Q&A in the end, where we'll try and unmute everyone so that you can directly put your questions to the presenter. So I think we are good to start. Over to you, Amrinder.
Yeah, thanks, Nitin. So Nitin has already introduced the topic a bit, right? So let me give you a little more background and objective behind this topic. So after COVID-19 lockdown was announced, and I think people knew a bit before also that maybe something like this is coming. So many Horizon customers within India have approached our sales team, TAMs, and others to essentially see how they can keep their business continuity during this lockdown period. So most of those customers were like existing Horizon customers, where end users had the internal access. What I mean by internal access is that the employees would come to office, they will sit in the office network, and they will use office devices within office premises to access their physical or the virtual desktops, right? But after lockdown, the situation changed significantly, where the same requirement is that instead of accessing their resources, either physical desktops or remote apps or virtual desktops, instead from office premises, from their homes, right? So whole of Horizon team, has basically handheld customers during this period, and we have enabled them. And in addition to existing customers, there were some new customers also, where essentially we helped them during this period and allowed their employees to continue working from their homes, and business continuity was taken care. Another thing is, in this session, we'll be covering these case studies, roughly 5 case studies, and then we will, so they'll be covered at a slightly higher level because we have too many case studies to cover, but we have good reference section towards the end of the slide deck, and you can always look at that section for more details, right? Yeah, so that's about background and objective, and then I'll briefly talk about Horizon architecture. Especially Horizon is pretty vast, but I'll be mostly concentrating on internal access, and multi-site. And then my colleague from Unified Access Gateway, UAG, Pawan, will cover the UAG overview. And after that, we'll be talking about business continuity, work from home case studies. We have total 5 of them, and we also have a brief demo for all the case studies. And then we'll talk about during this any situation like this lockdown, what is better, VDI or VPN. So there's a very good blog article from one of our colleagues, Brian Madden, and these slides are based upon whatever he has talked about VDI versus VPN, and I also shared the link in the reference sections. And towards the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So this is how the internal access looks for Horizon. So essentially, we have a set of connection servers, right, in a single pod, and there could be a load balancer before those connection servers, and then there are Horizon clients. So everything is within the office premises, right? So there is no UAG in picture, and Horizon clients can directly connect to connection servers, right, or the load balancer, and then load balancer will take care of redirecting those requests to the different connection servers. And once the initial handshake is done, once the initial authentication and desktop is allocated, the actual protocol traffic will directly go to the agents. And that's a very simplistic deployment where everything is internal access. And most of our customers were in this sort of architecture of Horizon before COVID-19. And now, what basically we have done for most of our customers, and there were some additional requirements, but this particular whatever architecture slide you see here, that's done for all the customers. So the now after COVID-19, the users are coming, are accessing their physical or virtual desktops from their homes, and those requests are coming over the internet, right? So they are in their home networks and trying to access the resources in the corporate data center, right? So the first thing which is required is setting up of this UAGs, Unified Access Gateways, and they sit in DMZ. The internal network remains the same. Internal users can still come in through the local load balancer. Maybe not during this time, but once the situation becomes normal, after that, maybe there'll be internal users also and external users simultaneously. And the external users. Nitin, do we take these questions in between, or we leave them towards? And I see a raised hand.
I see a raise hand. I'll just unmute Ravi if he wants to.
Okay.
Ravi, do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question you have? Yeah, Ravi, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, key point here is this UAG is deployed in DMZ, and it completely separates out the corporate traffic from the external user traffic, and UAG internally connects to communicates with the
offering from CrowdStrike as a managed services, right? Where we go and we manage all of these modules that so CrowdStrike directly will go and look into data.
Nitin, did you get the question?
No, I did not get the question.
I'll request the participant to please type in the question in the Q&A panel, and one of the panelists will take it, will answer. And let's basically, you can always type in your questions, whatever questions you have, and towards end we'll have at least 5 to 10 minutes for open QA, and please hold on to your questions then. And other questions you can always type in. Okay, so let's continue. Yeah, so this is the UAG deployment, which allows external users to access the corporate environment, their virtual and physical desktops in the corporate environment. Yeah, so this is the multi-site deployment. It's a little more detailed. We can ignore some of the components, but I think the key thing here is that there are many Horizon customers who have offices in different locations, and they have this Horizon set up in different locations, right? So certain customers have deployed the UAGs in each of their locations, whereas certain customers have just, they have the UAGs only in, let's assume somebody in South India, they have office in say Madurai, Chennai, and Coimbatore. And instead of putting UAGs in all the 3 locations, they have just put the UAGs in Chennai, and then same UAG is internally redirecting the traffic depending upon the pools which are created to the connection servers. So different, and some of the customers have chosen to deploy it in all the sites, right? So depending upon the number of users and how much load they have. But the key point here is that and this whole architecture works for a multi-site environment pretty well. And depending upon the customer scenario, a particular topology can be chosen. And as most of you might already be aware, we have this cloud pod architecture, which enables communication between different Horizon pods. So a pod is a collection of connection servers, right? So it allows this communication between Horizon pods. And if the settings are done in proper way, if suppose resources in a particular pod are all over, then the incoming user can get a session from the different pod. So multi-site works pretty well in that scenario. So Pawan, you are there. Can you please go over this particular slide?
Yeah, hi guys, this is Pawan here. Let me quickly briefly go over unified access gateway features. So UAG is used to provide access to remote virtual desktops and apps in a secure way over internet. So this is, as explained by Amrinder, is deployed in DMZ, and it will host a couple of gateways, one for BLAST protocol as well as one for PCORP protocol. The clients on the internet have to go through these gateways to access the remote virtual desktops or apps. The gateways will allow traffic only on behalf of an already authenticated user to pass through them, and hence your internal resource is secure over internet. So they don't have to be exposed to internet. So that way the UAG provides a secure access to your internal resource or the virtual desktop resources. So additionally, we can have enhanced authentication enabled on for the external users by enabling edge authentication on UAG in DMZ. We can enable like Radius Auth, RS Secure ID Auth, Smart Card Auth, Device Certificate Auth, etc. And also we can also integrate with third-party XAML 2.2 IDPs like Okta, Ping, Azure, AD, ADFS, etc. And to provide the authentication, multi-factor authentication, I mean. And we can also we can block access to non-compliant devices. This use case is for, let us say, BOID non-corporate managed devices accessing the VDI resources in case of work from home in some cases. So we support device policy check with third-party vendor called as OPSFAT. The OPSFAT will check for device whether the device is compliant or not, like whatever policies which have been defined in OPSFAT, which may be like is a device patched with the latest security patch update, is it having the latest antivirus, is it compromised in any way, etc. And whenever Horizon client tries to launch a desktop or app, the UAG will check whether the device is compliant with OPSFAT, and only if it's compliant, it will allow the access. So this can also be enabled in some cases if on need basis. And also UAG is used to provide secure access for Horizon desktops and apps hosted on Azure as well as VMware on AWS.
Okay, thanks, Pawan. So now we will basically move on to the case studies where we'll talk about 5 different case studies and how Horizon has helped in business continuity and enabling end users to work from home. So first case study is pretty straightforward, and all the subsequent case studies, whatever we talk about, actually have used this scheme, right? So whatever is used in case study 1. So here the key thing is that before COVID-19, the access to virtual desktops was allowed only from the office networks, and due to COVID lockdown, requirement was to allow access to virtual desktop from home over the internet, right? And this was done for multiple customers, right? And there are some big players in IT, ITS industries, and some of them have offices across multiple sites within India, right? So the solution, which I briefly covered up during architecture also. So what we did essentially is deployed the unified gateway access UAG in DMZ at multiple office sites of a customer, and then the employees could access their physical or virtual desktops from their homes. We can also audit the employee access, and we can show those audit records. And we also, if time permits, towards the end, we do have a video on how to deploy UAG in a HA pair. So we'll see if we can cover that. But whatever is the demo for this case study, we are just covering the single UAG scenario because of time constraints. So this is the recorded demo, and here this is about accessing the desktop from the external network. So initially we demonstrate the access from the internal network. So here, if you see, the key thing to note here is that this user is connecting to the connection server directly, demo connection server.srd demo.local, and this is the internal access. So this user has access to 2 pools, and user is launching an instant clone pool. So the launch is successful. Everything is sort of fine, right? So this is the internal access before COVID-19. So we can see the session properties. There's something called as VMware Horizon Performance Tracker. You can see various session properties there. I put a link to this in the references section. So it tells about the broker IP, the client IP, and everything is sort of shown here. So now, after COVID-19, we need to deploy the UAG. So this is a 3-NIC UAG deployment. And why do we need, so recommended deployment is a 3-NIC deployment. You can do it in a single NIC or 2-NIC also. The 3 different NICs are required. The first NIC is for the internet traffic, which is basically for all the DMZ traffic. And the second NIC is for the UAG management traffic, whatever REST APIs or whatever UI calls are coming to UAG. So they go to the NIC 2. And NIC 3 is for the internal traffic. So that essentially is the communication between UAG and the Horizon connection server. So, or the different components, if suppose, like say, 2-factor authentication and other things are set up. So that's for all the internal communication. So here, these are the 3 different networks to which these NICs are mapped. And this is the configuration for each of the interfaces. And mostly these are the default configurations. We have just kept the defaults here. This password. So this is the UAG deployment. This we are setting the OVF, we are basically the OVA template, and then we are setting up the UAG. Now we are configuring the UAG itself, UAG appliance. Now we log in into the admin UI of the UAG. And then we go to the Horizon settings. So it's sort of already pre-configured, but we are showing the settings here. So this is the connection server URL, right? And this is what all protocols are enabled. So this, whatever the external URL you are seeing here, we have our external IP, that is the NAT IP. So this whole setup is done in the VMC, which is VMware Cloud on AWS environment. This whole demo setup is created there. So now, once the UAG is configured, we come to the UAG's configuration on the connection server. It's fairly simple. We only need to register the UAG here, and we just register it with this public IP, public FQDN. So this is external location. Now this is the launch. This is external launch now. So this is the end user sitting in their home and trying to access their virtual desktop or physical desktop from their home network. So this call is coming to UAG. So key thing to look here is the URL. Instead of connection server, it's the UAG URL now. So call is going to UAG first, and then it will be redirected to the connection server. Yeah, again, same 2 pools. Yes, launch is successful. We can see some of the session properties. So these are the audit events, right? So we see all the audit which user has logged in at what time, right? And all the event properties are logged here. So this we can keep track what all users are logging into the system. Okay, so this covers the demo for the first case study. Let me go back to the slides and move on to the case study 2. So here, the key thing here is that instead of the virtual desktops, which already were there, the customers had the physical desktops. So in the office network, the end users were having their physical desktops and they were working on those physical desktops. There are no virtual desktops in this picture, in this case study. Now, how do we allow access to those physical desktops from a home network, right? So when they're coming to office, everything is fine, hunky and dory, but once you go back to your home, then how do we allow that access? And there were both existing and new customers here, right? And again, one existing customer was in IT/ITES industry who had who already had the Horizon deployment, and but the existing Horizon deployment was mostly for the virtual desktops. It was not for physical. But because of COVID-19, they expanded their environment and basically started using Horizon for the physical desktops also. And then another customer in financial industry also did the same thing. So I already covered the situation before and after COVID-19, and the solution was so we can install Horizon Agent on each of the physical machines also. So it's not only for the virtual environments like vSphere environment. Horizon agents do work on physical machines, and we can create a manual pool for all the physical machines, and then we can entitle users to those pools, to those manual pools, and we can also assign the physical machine which belongs to a particular user in that manual pool. Now, in this whole scheme, this becomes tedious if suppose the number of users are very high. So doing individual entitlements and assignments for each and every user is pretty laborious work. So there is a tool which basically comes to the rescue here, and we are going to demonstrate that tool as well. So we are going to demonstrate the installation of the agent on physical machine, then creation of manual pool, then create the entitlement and assignment for an individual user using the Horizon Admin UI, and then using the tool as well. So let me switch to the case study 2 demo. So this is basically we are installing the Horizon agent on the physical machine here, and sorry, yeah. So this is a regular Horizon agent installer tool, and many customers use some third-party tools to automate this agent installation also, or whatever existing tools you have using which you publish software on your physical machines can be used to install the agent also. This is the connection server URL, and the same thing instead of a UI installer can be done through command line also. There are silent installers. All these parameters can be passed through the command line installer, and silently it will install. So it's not that somebody has to physically do this. It can be done. It can be scripted also, whole of this installation. And you can leverage your existing tools to install this agent. So yeah, this installation is complete now on the physical machine. So now We are logging into the Horizon admin UI, the connection server admin UI, and we are going to see this machine, whatever wherever we install the agent. So it comes under the settings, registered machine. So if you go to others, you will see this machine, and this agent is in available state, so it's ready to take connections. But before that, we need to create a pool, and we are going to create a manual pool here. So they are not vCenter virtual machines, they are like physical machines. And so these are the different pool properties: pool name, display name. Yeah, so now we are adding the registered machines to the pool. So now this machine will be available in this pool to be assigned to the users. So yeah, we can see this machine here. So this is available. And now we'll do entitlements and assignments. Yeah, so now we have two machines, and one entitlement is already done, which is not recorded in this video. So we'll do it on the physical host too. So now we are searching users for the entitlement. Yes, so entitlement is done. Now we can assign the machine to this particular user. So when this user demo one logs in, he will get the physical host too, because that particular machine is assigned to this user. Now this is a laborious process if you have 100 of the users. So we can use this tool. I have added a link to this tool in the reference section. This is available, and if you search for Horizon documentation, you will easily find it. So we can select the pool here, and then we can import all the mappings, the physical host to the user mapping from a CSV file. So this CSV file is fairly simple. You have the physical machine and the fully qualified username with the domain, and then you selected the pool also and you imported it. So right now there are no entitlements in the system. We cleared all the entitlements. And now we are going to run this tool. So first machine is added to the pool, right? And then user, and then basically first to the desktop and then to the pool. So this automatically creates these entitlements, and you can do it for hundreds of users. All you need is to create that simple CSV file. Okay, so this demonstrates the creation of pool and doing entitlements and assignments for physical machines. We are not showing the desktop launch here, but users will see, we'll show it in the subsequent case studies where launch also will be done. So this is the demo for the case study too. Let's go on to the case study 3. You can type in your questions. We will take live questions towards the end. So this is case study 3. We are essentially the access for the machines, right? So now users can access their virtual or physical machines, virtual desktops or physical machines from their home network. But what administrators want is that if the access is over the internet, if people are coming outside the office network, we want two-factor authentication to be enabled, right? So again, this was done by one of the big ITITS customer, Horizon customer in India. And the main requirement is here to enable the two-factor authentication. So what the solution here is that we can set up either RSA or Radius, and as Pawan explained, I think now we support other multi-factor authentication systems also. So we can set up them with UAG, and then when user is launching the desktop, the end user will have to provide basically in case of RSA, it will be first the PIN and then the normal password, whatever they provide. So in this case study, we are going to demonstrate setting up of a RSA Secure ID server, integrating it with UAG, and then we are going to demonstrate the PIN. Basically, the user has to do two-factor authentication to get their desktops. So I will request my colleague Noble to drive this demo. Just 1 minute. Noble, you are there?
Yes, Amrinder.
Okay, you want to take the control or shall I just run it?
Yeah, you can give me the control.
Okay. Yeah, you have the control now.
Okay. So in this demo, we will see how we can configure RSA along with the UAG. So the demo has two parts. First is configuring RSA server with the basic configuration. Then we'll move on to UAG or configure RSA with UAG. So first step here is to add our identity source, which is our domain controller or domain. So to do that, we need to make sure our domain communicates in our LDAPs. So LDAPs requires certificates, and that signing certificate has to be imported to RSA. So if you see, we are in operation console here, and we do import of domain controller signing certificate here as the first step. Once certificate is imported, we can configure connection to Active Directory. We'll enter the basic information, directory, LDAP URL, and the credentials. Once those are given, we can go ahead and map user DNs in the next step. These are the already configured ones. So here you can see we are having two base DNs. One is user-based DN and one is group-based DN. These are the DNs which will be used for user and group search. We'll also mark this particular Active Directory domain controller as the identity source to be used for this domain. Next, we'll move on to security console of RSA server. Here we will have to link the added domain controller or the domain to be used with the RSA. Once this is done, we can go ahead and search for users. We'll pick the domain which is added in the earlier step. We have already configured user 2, so I will go and show the setting for user 2 or demo 2. We have configured demo 2 with a static pin here rather than a token for the demo purpose. So you can see how that is done. We'll go to authentication settings and provide a fixed passcode. So the next part is adding UAG to RSA server as an authentication agent. We'll provide the FQDN of UAG, which is resolvable from inside. The last step we have to do here is to download the server configuration file, which has to be imported to UAG. We can generate that here. We'll move on to UAG now. We have already configured, so I'll show you the settings. We have RSA configuration done here. So we have external host name of UAG and internal host name, which is added to RSA. And we also import the server configuration file, which we generated. Next, we will go ahead and make the changes in Edge authentication for Horizon. We'll select the auth method as secure ID. Now we are ready to launch a desktop using RSA as the authentication. So if you see here, instead of password, user is prompted for RSA passcode when connecting to UAG. You can see we are connecting to the UAG here, the IP, FQDN. Once user is authenticated against RSA, next level of authentication happens against the connection server. We are launching the physical host here. And you can see it is accessed from external IP. That's all from the RSA demo. Amrinder, you can take back the control.
Okay. Can you give control to me? 1 minute.
You should be able to go ahead now.
Okay. Yeah. 1 minute. Yes. Fine. Okay. So thanks, Nopal. Yeah, let me go back to the slides and to the case study 4. So case study 4 is another scenario where the requirement was that instead of direct access to the offshore development center resources, ODC resources, the requirement was to have a 2-hop access to the offshore development center. So let's assume, there's a customer in the ITS industry, and or most of the ITS industry customers have these ODCs for their end customers, and those ODCs are essentially in a completely separate network, separate zone. And the requirement was not to give direct access to that ODC environment from the employee's home, but provided 2-hop access to it. So essentially, first from their home network, the employee should come to the company's network, and from the company's network, they can go to the ODC network. So that was the requirement here. And how did we achieve it? So what we did is an RDSH form was set up, and Horizon client itself was published as a remote app, right? So for accessing any virtual desktop or physical desktop or a remote app, we use Horizon client, right? But here what was done is Horizon client itself was published as a remote app as a first hop. And once using that Horizon client remote app, the end users will get a RDSS session, and then from that RDSS session, they will launch the virtual desktop, right, which is in the ODC resource or in the ODC environment. So that's what was done here. And let's take a look at the demo. Yeah, so here we are going to demonstrate how to access ODC resources using published Horizon client. So this is the connection server UI, admin UI of the connection server. And we have a RDSH form here already created. So this RDSH form is having a single RDS host. And in this host, Horizon client is already installed. So on this, it's a Windows Server 2016 machine. So for publishing any remote app, the backend for it is the RDSH host, and on those hosts, whatever remote application we want to publish, that needs to be installed. So in this host, the Horizon client application is already installed. And this application pool is already created out of that application which is installed. And we can see for this application pool, we can see the entitlements. So 2 users are entitled, ODC user 1 and ODC user 2. And another important thing to note here is that this connection server is a different connection server, right? So this is an entirely different environment, right? This is a different pod together, right? So because this needs to be in a different network, so this is an entirely different pod. It's not in the same, wherever we are doing the other demos, that's an entirely different pod. There's a different Horizon pod, and this is a different Horizon pod, and they are not linked using CPA. So they are 2 different pods. Yeah, so we saw the entitlements already. So now next step is how we are going to access desktop using the published Horizon this thing. So now here the end user is connecting to the newly set up connection server, which is ODC CS ODC, and you can set up UAG, everything for it. Everything is applicable here as well. But for simplicity, we are directly connecting to the connection server here. So this is the published app. The published app is the Horizon client itself again. Yeah, so this VMware Horizon client is the published app. Now, once the end user is launching this remote app, they get access to their connection server, which is in the other environment. And now they need to launch this connection server and then access their resources. So this is actually the UAG's URL, whatever we are using in the previous case studies. So here 2-factor authentication is set up. This is same as used in the previous case study. So first PIN is entered and then the password. And now this user has access to the same 2 pools, and the user is launching the physical desktop. So this essentially is a 2-hop access of the virtual desktop. And again, you can see all the session properties here using VMware Horizon Performance Tracker. Yeah, so that's case study 4. Let's move on to case study 5. We are running a little short on time. So here actually, this particular case study is regarding the bandwidth consumption, right? So what happens is, like, let's assume that today or before COVID-19, say all the customers, all the users are internal users. As soon as they become the external users, so there's a lot of requirement towards the corporate bandwidth, right? So because now all the users are coming from outside, and first the user should have good internet connection, but once they reach your corporate DMZ, now they are because accessing their desktop over this internet. So on your corporate side also you need pretty good bandwidth. So many times there's a requirement to limit the bandwidth which is given to each of the sessions. So Horizon does support how we can control the bandwidth allocated to a Horizon session when it's accessed from home. And there could be other reasons also, where sometimes maybe you want to depending upon the type of application, audio video applications, you want to limit the bandwidth because the idea is that everybody should get a good enough quality. But if we don't limit these things, then it will be at the cost of the other users or maybe other applications which are in the environment. So VDI might work fine, but maybe some of your other applications might struggle if all the bandwidth is taken by VDI. So many a times, many a customer try to use these settings. So we are going to demonstrate this, and this is going to be using PC over IP protocol, but similar settings are available for Blast also. So here what we are going to do is, these are the GPU settings, right? And for a PC over IP session, we are going to limit the bandwidth to 500 kbps. So here you see we have limited it to 500 kbps, the bandwidth for a particular session. And in the remote session, what we are doing is we are playing a video. So if you see, the maximum bandwidth which is allowed is 496 kbps, and using Horizon, we are able to basically keeping it below 496 kbps, which is 478 kbps. And if you see the video quality, it's pretty poor at this this thing. It's only like say 2 frames per second. There's a lot of jitter. So now in the next, we are going to increase the bandwidth to 2096 kbps, which is 2 mbps. And let's see the improvement in the quality after that. Yeah, so now it's estimated is 2.1 and it's limited at 2, and now we have 7 frames per second. Still not very great, but better than the earlier. The key idea here is that this bandwidth can be controlled, and depending upon type of application, type of environment, everybody's mileage could vary with respect to the quality of applications. But these settings are available for both PC over IP and Blast protocols. So that's the demonstration for case study 5. we have 12 more minutes, so I'll just take maybe quickly 2-3 minutes to quickly explain about VDI versus VPN. So I think many of the new customers, right? So they have this dilemma in their mind that to provide access from home, what should they use? Should they use any VDI solution, or should they fall back to VPN? Yeah, I've taken name of Horizon, but I think these things are applicable to VDI in general, right? Not only to Horizon. So if you see, first let's quickly define what is VDI and what is VPN, right? And again, we can spend maybe hours on this, but I'll just try to quickly define this. So in case of VDI, what is happening is it's mainly accessing your resources remotely, right? So whether it's a remote app or it's a virtual desktop or a physical desktop, it's running in the corporate data center. All the users are doing is they are accessing it remotely, right? And they can access it from any device, right? It could be a browser, it could be a something like say Horizon client, or it could be maybe thin client, or they're different, and it could be any type of OS, right? So the end users can have their own devices, and then they can access their virtual desktop or physical desktop from anywhere. Whereas VPN is fundamentally different thing. It's essentially the extension of your corporate network, right? So when an end user is connecting to the office network from their laptop, and this laptop is probably provided to them by their office, and they are connecting over VPN to their office network, it's essentially the extension of the corporate network, right? So that laptop is as good as it's in the corporate network, depending upon the policies configured, all right? And everything still runs locally on the laptop, and the end user can connect back to the office through VPN to access their apps. So before deciding upon whether it's VDI or VPN, there are many factors to consider, right? So what are your type of applications? Are they mainly like SaaS applications, or are they like Windows native applications, right? What type of applications are there in your environment, right? And depending on what type of applications, maybe you can choose one technology or the other. Another key factor is whether employees already have laptops, right? And how those laptops are managed. So if employees don't already have laptops, then for VDI, okay, we say that end users can bring their own devices, but very well, there could be a situation where employee can say, yes, I don't have any laptop, right? Then if you go and procure a laptop for them, then that's going to be cost, right? Whereas if you're already using laptops, right, then another key thing is that how they are managed, how you are pushing the software to those laptops, right? Are using some modern unified endpoint management solution like VMware Workspace ONE UEM, or are you using the legacy management techniques? Yeah, as I told earlier, I have shared the link to so these two slides are based upon a very nice article written by Brian Madden. It's a very balanced article where I think pretty unbiased view about the choices between these two things. I'll strongly encourage you to go through that particular article to make up your own mind. But I'm just giving a quick intro to what he has written there. Second thing is VDI already set up? I think this is going to be a key thing. So if you're already using one or the other technology, I think then if you already spend engineering effort on it, if you've already spent dollars on it, then I think in situation like COVID-19, I think it's sort of better to go with what you already have rather than trying to set up these things again, because these are complex environments and take time to set up. Again, it depends, like another factor could be bandwidth, right? So VDI definitely needs bandwidth, right? And when I say bandwidth, this is your corporate bandwidth. But similarly on the VPN side also, let's assume that all the users are connecting from their home and you need to push some urgent patch to all the laptops. Then again, you need sufficient bandwidth so that critical patch can reach all the users in time, right? So in both the scenarios, the sufficient bandwidth is required. Again, if the environment is more traditional, where you have file share servers and not using the cloud storage, then probably something like maybe VDI could be better for file share servers, and cloud storage maybe VPN could be better, right? Again, the key thing here is that each environment is so different, so it's very difficult to come up with some generic guidelines that, okay, if A, B, C is there, do this. If C, D, E, F is there, do this, right? So each environment, especially in VDI, I've seen that each environment is very different. Each customer environment is different. So it's very difficult to come up with generic guidelines. Plus, are there any regulatory requirements? If suppose your corporate data can't go outside your data center, right? Then probably VDI serves you better, where all your applications and data are still remaining within the corporate data center. Let me take a quick, I think I need to quickly wind this up. So VDI good thing is that you can get your own device. It's secure. Not so good is that if you're already not doing it, then it takes effort to set up, right? And users will need good internet connectivity because that session is always there. If they don't have good internet connectivity, then probably their session is going to break multiple times, right? Which is not going to be a good experience. And you need good corporate internet bandwidth for an external access. VPN, the good thing is that if you already have laptops, then you don't need to do anything additional. You just need to set up your VPN infrastructure, but you don't need to give any additional devices. Not so good is that if your laptop management solution is not like say modern solution, then maybe updating the applications and OS on the laptops can be a challenging thing, because those laptops might not come to the corporate network for in your office network, right? So for long term, if the requirement is that they have to be there physically in the office network, not over VPN, then probably this might not work. And security could be a problem because your data is on the laptop, which is there at user's home. And again, to push urgent patches, you need good internet bandwidth. So I think during a situation like this, probably it's better to stick with what you already have or what you are comfortable with, and where you already done the investment. I think it's better to stick with those things. So these are the reference links. Nitin, I'm not sure if we can share the slides, or maybe we can do a PDF version of it, but I think it would be helpful if we can share these slides. So we still do that. Yes, right. So we still have 5 minutes. We can stay a little extra. We can take the live questions now.
So does it also have the URL of the blog that you're talking about?
Yes,
does
here
the
it
comparison
is. Yeah, VDI versus VPN, right?
The Brian Madden.
Yes, here it is.
Okay, so we don't have any open questions. Most of the questions have been answered by the panelists.
Okay, if there are any live questions.
Yeah, I'll try and unmute all so that they can directly put up the questions.
Yeah, so all the panelists feel free to chip in if you think that you are better suited to answer that question. Yeah, so participants, we are ready to take the questions. Please go ahead if you have any.
Yeah, this is Vinayak here.
Yeah, hi Vinayak, please go ahead.
So somebody has already answered my question for BLAST protocol at least. So
Okay.
we are seeing for physical desktops while using PCOIP and BLAST, we are actually seeing screen mirroring. So Noble has answered for BLAST at last, but
Okay.
is there anything for PCOIP as well?
Noble, you want to take that?
Yeah, so we have a similar GPO policy available for PCO IP as well.
Okay,
I can
but,
share the link with you.
It isn't by default or something?
You have to go back and check whether the policy settings are different
Because
in your environment.
in our environment, we have kept the settings as default. Nothing has been changed, and we are observing this kind of an mirroring screen while using PCIP and BLAST. While RDP is used, it is okay. It is showing black screen on the physical machine, and user at home is actually seeing the desktop.
Okay, I'll share the GPO with you on the chat screen.
Okay.
Please verify your configurations are right, and if we are still facing the issue, you can contact the support.
Okay, sure.
Thanks, Noble.
Okay, so we can take more questions. If you have any, unmute yourself and ask.
So, hi, this is Ajesh. You able to hear me?
Yeah, hi, Jesh.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi. I was asking the question regarding the difference between security servers and the UAG.
Yeah. So, Pawan, so traditionally, see, UAG is pretty new thing. Basically, it just came, I think, a couple of years back, maybe 3-4 years back. But security server has been traditionally there with the Horizon environment for many years. So, as I understand, the security server is getting deprecated, and the idea is that going forward will be supporting UAG only. Pawan, you want to add anything on the UAG side in addition to that?
Yeah, so UAG supports these authentication methods. I think as far as I know, security server supported only smart card. Other authentication methods were not supported on the edge on security server.
No, I think, no, that's not right, I guess. We use RSA with the security servers as well.
Enabling RSA on security server? Or is it on connection server which you enable RSA?
I think on the security server.
I believe we would have enabled on secure, not on the security server.
Connection
on
servers?
The connection server, yes.
Yeah.
And it is paired with the particular security server. That's how you are feeling it is authenticating using RSA on the security server.
Yeah, because on security edge, you cannot, I guess, as far as I know.
So we don't need to have a one-to-one connection with connection between security servers and connection servers now. Is that you mean to say?
Yeah, UAG can talk to a load balancer, and behind which there can be connection servers. So UAG can talk to multiple connection servers using load balancing. So that is one difference. The other features which are there, right? Like authentication methods is AML support, edge authentication, everything is on only on UAG. And UAG is again Linux based, security server was Windows, and I can think of only these things right now. And
yeah, there are, I think, a lot of enhancements going on UAG side, and security server is there for the legacy reasons, and it's already deprecated. So I think it's highly recommended that people move to customers move to UAG.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I see some questions. Okay. Fine. Any more live questions?
So there is a question on the Q&A window with GPO. I am not sure what is the question.
So,
Govind, do you want to unmute yourself and ask this question?
Yeah, hi, Govind here. I just want to, regarding data content, if user is connecting a VDI from any device, he can take a print screen and snipping, data content of the office, any mail also he can take with the snipping and print screen. So what policy we can so that user cannot take, print screen and snipping of a, VDI?
so what user can do? Sorry, I didn't get that part. So are you talking about screenshots and thing like that, or are
Yeah.
you talking about?
That is right, screenshots.
Yes, he's referring to the
Yeah,
snipping tool and
screenshot.
the screenshots.
Okay.
Because
Fine.
you know very well if I'm connecting with the office or if I'm taking a office desktop with the help of Horizon client, or I can see our client mail, and I just want to this client mail on my desktop, I can take a snipping and print a screen on my desktop.
So we do have things for USB redirection and clipboard copy and things like the printing and other stuff. We can disable those. Noble, are you aware if we have anything for the snipping tools or anything like that?
We can disable clipboard, and we have a fling which will watermark the content. So in case user takes a screenshot, that will have the watermark as a security measure.
Okay, so basically, see, I think people can take still the screenshot using their mobile phones, right? So to whatever level we secure it. So, but I think, yeah, this watermark is still not publicly available. Right? It's still a fling only. Maybe people can try that out. And yeah, at least we can know that this was illegally taken using that watermark.
Okay, because why I'm raising this concern, because it's a BUIOD, anyone can use a personal laptop. It's very easy to take a content of a mail, content of anything, content of a code also you can take easily.
Yeah, right. I think that's a good point. But what technology we have available right now is, I think, watermark. That too also has a fling, right? It's not like a main product feature. So fling is which are sort of the features which very
Right.
early
And
stage
specific
features.
banking project is very crucial for this. It never allow this type of thing if any user can taking this type of data.
Okay. Yeah. So
I think for such use cases, the customer can use, I think, thin clients, right?
No, for a work from home, user can use any type of devices. Like it should be any like a personal laptop. It's a non-Windows also. The concern only in a content. How can we block our office data content?
See, if it is taking a screenshot using an external device, yeah, we don't have a way to limit it. But if it is copying content from users' office machine to users' local machine, we have policies which will restrict the copy mechanism, or like copy paste what can be copied.
Yeah, that I know. That I know in local. But outsider, for outsider, I just want.
Yeah.
No, so see, the same kind of security measures what you do inside the office is applicable even for the outsider. Okay, so if somebody like takes a photograph of the code, right,
Yeah.
what he develops or what you have developed, right, how do you control it?
Right.
Can't do anything, right? So there are certain measures which we can do through policies and things like that. Beyond certain things, if somebody wanted to do it, then like there's no method.
Yeah, but in this case, what we can do is, we can leverage something like OPSWAT, which basically is a third-party, compliance checker, right? And it basically checks if the screenshot tool or any kind of tool that has a capability to take a screenshot, if it finds anything on the endpoint, it will then block users to access their virtual desktops on their BYOD. So these are the things that can be achieved with third-party tools like OPSWAT. But at the moment, we don't have anything available inbuilt into Horizon, except for the Fling that Amarinder has talked about.
Right. So in fact, if people wanted to really do malpractice, right, they can do anywhere. It's not that they can do whether it is off-prem or on-prem, right? They can do. So it's like our own behavior also. So controls and things like up to some extent we can put, right, through external third-party tools and things like that. But yeah, so that's our internal discipline. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and the scenario is even applicable for a customer who's not even coming through UAG or not working from home. At office also it's possible.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, right. Correct.
Okay. Any more live questions?
So there is a question: is the Fling or some tool to get the queries from EventDB for total session time of a user in a day? Is there a Fling or some tool to get the queries from EventDB? I think there is a tool for that.
So it actually gets the session time of users, like something like that. Like it is as a default query or something like that. Because this would be a requirement for each and every organization, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if Mukund is there on the call because he was working.
Yeah, correct. There is a Fling which is available, right? So probably if you can drop a note to one of us, so we can share that.
Yeah.
Right? And there are also some of our consultants who have developed customized report also, right? By capturing that data into VROps, right? And then they send that to the external database for the customer to create a report and things like that. So there are some work which a customized work which has been done. So out of the box, there are limited functionality, but there are work done by our consultants who have done this for some of our customers.
Okay. We are also searching for something like you get any report for the user that is spending the entire day, how many hours is spending on the VDI. So we could actually check what hours is working on.
Correct. No, correct. So there is an option. There is a Fling available. So even Fling has got limited option. You can get that data,
correct.
Right? But still, if you want very easy way, then you'll have to write external scripts and then do it. But it's doable. It's not that it's not doable. It's doable.
The Fling name is, I know the name. That's Horizon View Events Database Export Utility. Okay. So I can put the link in the chat.
Put the link in the chat. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions before we close the call? So looks like we are good. No more questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amrendra. Thank you all the panelists for helping us with the Q&A. Thank you all the attendees. And if you want the recording, get in touch with your respective TAMs. We'll share the recording soon with the TAMs.
Even after this session, right? If you guys still have any questions, right? So just feel free to get in touch with your respective TAMs and we'll be able to help you.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.